Welcome to Never Dull Moment. We have a very different episode this week. A manufacturer had reached out to us and they wanted to kind of quote unquote take the Pepsi challenge. They have produced their set of knives. They are willing to go up against what are some of the best and see where they rate. So this afternoon I'm going to present a company called Okingjoy. Yes, the founder of this is actually from Japan, for those of you who are wondering. So Sato Ryo is out of Japan. He is a big fan of Sakai steel. And so what he has done is he's created several sets of knives on his website, and they reached out to us. We told them a lot of times we don't do the reviews of different knife brands that aren't artisan anymore. I would like to first point out, so I've not been paid for this review. So just so you know, as far as compensation, the knives were sent for free. There's no other compensation. What I say is out of my face. I have not opened the boxes. I have prepared a myriad of tests. We do not alter the test. We are not, so whatever happens, it's whatever they sent in the box and whatever we're showing you. We do have, by comparison, some very expensive knives to compare them to. In a way, you can almost say it's not fair because the total of this knife set is $399, and the variety of knives, just one of the knives alone is a $1,500 knife. The other one's like a $1,300 knife. So we have a myriad of knives to compare it to, but I wanted to show you by comparison, it's it versus the standard of other things. So in case you can't hear in the background, my baby girl Josie, golden retriever, is visiting. She likes to come onto the set every once in a while and see what mom and dad are doing.
She also wants attention when we're busy doing something.
Yeah, apparently she wants some attention.
She's like a
she wants to
toddler.
see, what's those new knives you got on the show, Dad?
Are you a toddler?
Okay, so the first thing we need to do before we get into this is open the knives.
But you're not.
So we have, and it's funny because they're selling in America, they did this in inches, and I'm used to millimeters now. I've slowly gotten used to this. So this is an 11-inch knife. So let's see what we have going on here. I know it's a solid wood handle, VG10 steel. Now, for those of you who come on the show regularly and who know Japanese knives, VG10 is a Takafu knife. It's a Takafu steel. So Takafu Steel is a steel manufacturer out of Japan. And so they went ahead and did a VG10 cladded with Damascus knife. They did wrap it in saran to protect it from getting scratches on the handle. I appreciate the extra touch.
A little difficult to get up.
Well, that's just me taking my time. I actually am trying to make sure I don't get a lot of fingerprints on the knife, if that makes sense. So let's talk real quick about VG10. If you're new to the show or watching for the very first time, VG10 is a amazing steel. It is stainless, it is high carbon, and it is high vanadium. So it gives it like a hardness that is up there. So this knife can get extremely sharp. They have a what's called a Rockwell hardness. So if you're not used to that, the hardness helps us to determine how sharp we can get it. The harder the knife, the sharper you can get it, but at the same time, the more brittle the edge can be. And every manufacturer has to figure out, just looking at the box, nice box, every manufacturer has to figure out what they want to do. Your average Japanese knife is 61 and up. This is right at 61. So they are playing in the same playground as all the other knife manufacturers. So this 11-inch knife, I'm going to compare it in just a second to some Japanese links so we can get the millimeters down. So let's go ahead and grab this 240 millimeter Fugubiki. So I'd say this knife is right at 240 millimeter.
Hold on, Ben. Sorry.
It's okay. So for those of you who are into the metric system, I would say that this 11-inch knife is right there at the 240 millimeter length. Okay? And again, if you are new to the knife world, for those of you who are wondering, why do I need this particular knife? This particular knife is a single bevel fish slicing knife. What I'm looking for that I don't quite see, and I'm going to need to get a business card I'm looking for the ura, which would be the concave. I think the back of this knife would be flat. Are you seeing any concave where you are, honey?
No, it's just the shine is actually a little bit difficult too.
So what I want to do by comparison is I think everyone else can see we do have on the traditional Japanese single bevel knife that there is a slightly curved concave back. But to not discredit it, I need to actually take a business card, or I can use their card and see if I have it flat or if it's concave.
Hard to say if the business card itself was flat too.
I think the business card itself isn't flat. I'm going to lay it down on here. So again, I do think this is a flat back, no uroshi on the back, but single bevel. And let me explain to you, this is a fish slicing knife. Okay, and we will go ahead, let me close this box and give it a comparison to some other knives. The first knife I'm going to compare it to is another Yanagiba. This particular Yanagiba is quite a bit larger at 300 millimeter. You will notice it has a thicker spine. It retails at $1,500. It is a high carbon steel knife, which means it can rust and get a patina. The steel that is being used for this VG10 knife is not going to give you that problem. It is going to not have corrosion, and remember, you're going to be dealing with a wet fish the entire time. The Japanese chef doing sushi would have to wipe down the Yanagiba that he's using. You will not have that problem with the VG10. It's going to be a little bit more like less fuss, you might say. Okay, being a little bit thinner, it's going to help slice through the food. You can see that it mimics the traditional handle. I do want to point out that it is the traditional octagonal handle, and that the wood that is used is not faux wood or veneer. It is actually solid, regular wood. They do have the nickel ringers on there. And the one thing that they did that's a little bit different, it's a full tang. So the metal of this knife actually extends all the way through to the bottom, where on the traditional Japanese knife it generally comes about halfway. I can't tell if that is discoloration from the coloration of the horn that is being used, or if that's the end of the tang of the metal coming through. So it could be the color of the horn that's being used on the end of this, or the metal. But what that means is as far as the weight, like it goes completely through instead of stopping halfway. The fit and finish on it is quite flush. Yep. And let's go ahead and again look at the comparison to other Japanese knives. The fit and finish being quite flush, which is what you would want to see. Now I'm going to go ahead and compare this as well to what's called Hanyaki Kuritsuke. This knife has never been used. It's extremely high value. It will not be used on this show ever. Again, the fit and finish, you can see that the horn on this, they're both very similar. So as far as like following the traditions of Japan, the Okingjoy company wanted to do that.
Oh, sorry.
In a moment, we will display how you use this knife. But this single bevel knife, having the VG10, if you're using it for the fish, you should keep a sharp edge for a very long time. VG10 holds it still. Let's try that again. VG10 holds its edge extremely well. You should be slicing fish. So because what you're doing is a very tender, delicate thing, if you use a good cutting board, edge grain, end grain, wood, some of the synthetic rubber that's coming out of Japan. It's really going to hold an edge for a long time. Sharpening it is not going to be something that's necessary for quite a while. Again, you're not going to have to worry about rust. What I will let you know is later on when you go to sharpen it, you can either use a service or you can watch our videos. I'll put a link above and you can see how to sharpen this knife, because it is unique to sharpen the knife on a single bevel knife. I noticed that on the website it said it has a lifetime guarantee and has a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, the normal upkeep on this knife would be that you can use it, you can walk away, enjoy dinner, wipe it down when you're done. I personally, think try to take the time and wipe everything down. It does stainless does not mean stain free. It just means it stains less. Again, it's not something you need to worry about, but take the time to have pride in your ownership. And I want to compare it to one more knife really fast. The Fugubiki is a much more delicate knife that is meant to cut blowfish, so you don't want a lot of weight. So you can see it's thinner than the other Yanagibas used for big fish, but bigger than the Fugubiki. The handle is a little bit less beefy than the other two more expensive knives, but a little bit beefier than the Fugubiki. They are about the same length. So again, it's not going to be too heavy on your hand. Again, if a really nice knife like this with a sharp edge is so that way when you're cutting fish, you don't tether the edges. When you're looking at your sushi, you really want your presentation to be nice. We eat with our eyes, so having a nice clean edge is important. I will do a paper test on it in just a moment. But I did just want to be able to give you, a look at the size. Before we dirty up the cutting board, I am going to move on to the other items that were sent to us on the show. So what they did was they sent a set of knives, because this set is available for purchase on the website. So in this set will be some knives that you would use not for the fish, but for the other things that you would be doing in the kitchen. So this set of knives, we have what is called a Nakiri. Now all three of these knives, let me go ahead and get them out, are going to be used the same for other utilitarian things other than fish, but they are made of the same steel. And let me get this closed so that way I can display these properly. So this is mono steel, meaning it is one type of steel. The other knife, what was going on was it was cladded. And what that means is on the original VG10 Yanagiba knife, the fish slicing knife, you had a certain steel and it was wrapped with another steel around the outside of it. Okay, so the actual edge of this knife is going to be VG10. VG10 is inside. Think of an ice cream sandwich. The vanilla is the cutting edge. The outside is the cookie. And so the steel on the outside, the Damascus, is nice for looks. It does not contribute anything to performance. It is something that people tend to love to see. It will help to protect the brittleness of the VG10 blade. We only really need the blade of it to be VG10. With that being said, these knives are going to be mono steel. Mono steel meaning the entire blade is made of one steel. Again, a full tang knife, all three of these. This particular steel is the Asian version of German steel. We are used to, okay, so this particular steel has a name, and I'm see if I can make sure I get this right. So it is CR5 MOV 15. Now, to those of us who know knife stuff, it seems like we've heard that before. So CR5 sounds a lot like 15 CR, and instead of MOV 15, we have 50. So basically I'm saying that there's another steel that's German that we are used to seeing, and the German steel is used in Victorinox and it's used in some of the Wusthof and stuff like that. What's nice about the German steel or this Japanese version of that, it's going to have more flex. For those of you who are used to more Western knives, you're going to see that the steel has a little more flex. Now, if you've ever taken a big piece, like a big vegetable, say like butternut squash, and you get your knife stuck in there. Not that your knife's not sharp, but it's a big vegetable. If the knife kind of gets stuck. These can bend a little bit to kind of get it out, but if you had a really hard knife, you would break your knife. The goal is keep your knife sharp so you don't really have that problem, and to use the proper knife for what's going on, and which is what we're going to show you. So we have a Nakiri. This is the vegetable knife. I want to hold it up in comparison to a traditional Japanese Nakiri. So you will see this is the Japanese version of a Chinese cleaver. It is definitely shorter in its profile. You'll see on both a slightly rounded edge at the front. They are not supposed to be 90. The back is more 90. So it is in keeping with the tradition of Japan. So this is going to be used as your vegetable knife. It has a little bit more size, it has a little more weight, and so when you're cutting, it has a little bit more energy and mass to help push through the vegetable. Now, what's interesting about this knife, and I think my wife, who has the microphone on, can confirm with me, this knife can be confusing on us. Is it a chef knife? Is it a santoku? Is it a sujuhiki? So it is said to be a meat slicing knife in their description. I want to show you what a meat slicing knife looks like.
Yeah, I was like, it's not long enough.
Meat slicing knives are typically not too tall, and they are made for slicing meat. I would say this is in keeping a little bit more in the chef knife family, a shorter chef knife. Chef knives are used for slicing meat, but they're also used for every other purpose that there is. So again, you would be able to use this for vegetables, for doing things in your hand, meat slicing as well.
A non-knife people's knife.
Yeah, it's a non-knife people's knife. What's kind of nice about this knife is it's not too long, so grandma, the children can learn on this. But yes, if you have like turkey at Thanksgiving, this is typically what you're going to go to. And then we have the knife that I think for most of you would be kind of confused by. It is a utility knife. And I have another utility knife to compare it to. So this particular utility knife, okay, I'm going to get one by a company called Shun, who is made out of VG10. I want to show you the length comparison. This utility knife by Shun is a little bit longer, but
so much taller.
height-wise, I don't know. I mean, the Shun one is just a little bit taller, and that does vary.
It is taller.
You will notice that right where the handle connects, it is extremely similar. So that style is a similar style. But I do want to take a moment to show you that in comparison to a paring knife. So a paring knife would be shorter. So their utility knife is longer than a paring knife, shorter than some of the utilities. And so you might ask yourself, how do you use those? A paring knife is typically going to be used for something when you're working with something in your hand. So if you were coring a strawberry, if you were peeling a potato, then you would go to your paring knife. I think this is a nice in-between that I probably could, if I had the potato, do that. I could probably core the strawberry, so I could kind of use it in the paring family. At the same time, I actually use this utility knife by Shun and in a cutting silver skin. Like, let's say you had a piece of meat, some of the different pork shoulders and things that you need to kind of move, or say a pork tenderloin, getting underneath. You might think that's what the meat slicing knife is for. Those can be a little bit big. So just getting into like delicate places, slicing things off like that, even cutting around the pork like on a pork chop. Do please be careful with your knives around bone and frozen food. It is not a place to use. Take your time. Be a knife person. Take care of the knives that you get. If you do invest in a nice knife set, they will last you a long time, as long as you take care of them. So with that being said, we're going to use these knives, but let's talk a little bit more about the steel comparison. So this 5CR MOV 15, I could have got them out of order, but I knew I've said all these things so many times. The one of the things that you need to know is they really are resistant against corrosion. And the kitchen can be a very wet place. They are softer. So when you think of German knives, think of softer. This is the Asian version of German steel. You can get an edge, but it loses its edge quicker. The VG10 will hold its edge for a long time. If you watch our show, I'll link above on our entire sharpening supply, then what you're going to be able to do is be able to sharpen your knives. Again, you can, if you have one of those knife sharpeners you want it through, you can do that. A sharpening service I definitely recommend, but I also recommend getting a whetstone and doing it. So corrosion is not going to be a problem. You can get the knife sharp. It will lose its edge more rapidly than, say, something as harder as the VG10. It is not wrong for you to use your Yanagiba, your fish slicing knife, in other ways if you want to have fun with it as a meat slicing knife. All knives can be used for all tasks. But again, this is a great set to get into for the 400 because most of your money, 240 millimeter VG10 solid wood full tang knife, Damascus cladded, of the $399 that you're spending, I'd say most of it is on this particular knife. That knife does hold its value. All of the knives I showed you from 480 to 1500 to 2000, they're over here. You could get a similar VG10 for this for 225 to 300. So again, a lot of the stuff is being done. Really, the investment is here. And this is going to give you the knife that's going to give you wear and tear. It's not so brittle that it'll break. And it is something that you can sharpen and get an edge on regularly. The reason they do not use this knife on everyday carry knife, this particular steel on everyday carry, even though it's corrosion resistant outside, it really doesn't hold its edge long enough. You're out there, you're cutting very rustic kind of things, wood, campfire, stuff like that. So in the delicate world of kitchen knives, if you're using knives properly where you're not doing frozen food or bone, these can hold its edge greatly. So what we're going to do real quick is go ahead and move the knives. And then we're going to show you how to use them. Okay, so I'm going to move the cutting board towards me just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to first get into, let's say, the paring knife. If I wanted to do something a little bit more delicate, if I needed to core, let's say I wanted to hollow out this pepper because I want to do some type of stuffed peppers, then this might be where I'm going to be doing that. And then this is when you could take your cream cheese, say maybe some scallions, some other hotter peppers, seasoning, kind of mix it up, stuff it all in there and get ready to bake, which would be really kind of nice. Again, if you wanted to do, if you have smaller hands and you wanted to do something where you wanted to julienne, you see I'm able to get some nice slices. I didn't even test to see how the knife did, but I can tell you already from doing it that we were able to get a pretty sharp edge right off the bat. So my wife would agree that we typically don't do a paper test on a knife that's already been used.
Nope.
But we'll do it anyway. So,
okay.
So we had a good cut.
It sounded decent.
It sounded great. I mean, it sounded smooth. We didn't hear any spots on the knife. Again, the nice thing is the knife itself is wet, and I'm not going to worry about corrosion as I set it to the side. We're going to use the vegetable knife. We're going to do a pepper. In case you've never seen how to do a pepper, just slice off the top, slice off the bottom. I would definitely reserve. Then slice into, lay the knife flat, roll the pepper so that way it pulls away, and then just lay the pepper down so that way you can stay flush with the membrane. The membrane itself is bitter, so it's nice to get, if you want to be picky and if things are, need to be economical, definitely don't, get rid of that little bit that you might have missed. Now, if you'll remember, again, we haven't tested sharpness, but if you remember, these peppers have a skin on the back. So I definitely know a dull knife tends to bounce. So let's see. So it's got the length of the blade that I need to handle the work. The flatness of the edge making contact with the cutting board allows me to cut through. Each piece is loose. We had no problem. Again, don't normally test the blade after it's been used.
But now we have a precedent with this.
And we had no problem. I am curious. The old fold, don't crease. And we had no problem cutting that, which can be very difficult if you don't know what happens. If you fold and do not crease, a dull knife can bounce. So let's take the knife that hasn't been used. The dull knife could easily bounce or bite. If it bites, it's a sharp knife. So we've just seen that this is a sharp knife. So let's use it on the show. And by the way, like, these are things I like to eat, so I'll have some peppers and onions later. Okay, so you can see that that was no problem. That was an easy bite. Let's go ahead and make sure that we don't eat paper later. You would say, Greg, could you use the vegetable knife for this? Sure, but then I wouldn't be able to show you what the chef knife looks like.
It seemed to cut through it pretty easily too.
I would say that I had no problems whatsoever. But this is the part of the onion cutting that my wife absolutely can't stand, because she gets afraid every time that when I'm dicing an onion that I'm going to cut myself.
Because he does this like slasher move in here that, well,
so we're going to cut.
If you haven't seen it, you'll see it in a second.
Yeah, so we're going to cut the onion two ways. We're going to do a dice, and we're going to do a cut that we would do for caramelized onions.
Slicer boy, you're not wearing your apron.
It's okay.
Dear Lord. Okay.
Okay, so for those of you watching, my fingers are going to be at the very top of the onion. I'm moving my body away from the cutting board. I'm getting the knife parallel. I want the knife to cut through the onion, not all the way through, so I can slice. So I'm going to and there we go. We've made our wife not happy.
Josie Marie. Sorry guys, the dog was tangled. There was a snafu in the video.
And again, you see the knife was long enough to handle the task. And as far as our rocking motion, anything that we've missed on the dice, we can get. Now, as far as like caramelized onions, I love caramelized onions, peppers and onions. So what I would do is I would keep the onion in this way. I want to slice in little, like, half moons. So I've got my claw, so my knife can sit on my fingers. When you get about halfway, roll your onion so it's down, so you can do it again. And we're able to get nice thin slices. And we can do some caramelized onions. Okay. With that being said, let's move this entire cutting board out of the way.
I'm not sure where you're putting that, sir.
I don't know where I'm putting it either. That's the beauty of our show, is the...
Move the knives in, and then maybe the dining room table and closer to the middle.
So that means microphone off for 1 second.
Because there's Brussels sprouts on the stove.
Yeah, because I cooked some Brussels sprouts.
The dog's like, where are you going with that, Dad? You can't have those. You can't have those, babe. No.
So,
find your fish safe. And there he is.
There we go. So for those of you who don't know, this cutting board is Hasegawa. I'm not promoting it for sale in the sense that I don't make anything if you buy one. But the Hasegawa it's in the family of synthetic rubber cutting boards. It is something that I can throw in the dishwasher, but it's highly sanitary, and we're going to be taking a fish. I am not sure the quality of this particular fish. This is a wild sockeye salmon. Wild. I'm going to say this as a disclaimer. If you guys don't know, when you're doing salmon at your house, if it is not farmed salmon, you cannot eat it raw. All fish wild contain parasites. All fish have to be cooked, period. Salmon is cooked. My wife likes barbecue salmon. It's the only way she eats it. If you're doing a raw preparation, it has to be farmed. If you're an actual sushi chef, then you would know. So we're going to, my dog is requesting my wife's
She's going to have an accident if I don't go.
So my wife is going to step away while I keep talking to you on the main camera. And again, for those of you who are new to the knife world, welcome to Never a Dull Moment. I am Greg Blythe. I'm hoping that this is still not a dull moment as we continue to do this review. So, you can see that this fish is skin on. Okay. Now, before I do anything with the fish, let's test the sharpness of the knife. This is the VG10 knife. I mean, that's great. This is called a push cut, where I just pushed. Extremely nice. So if you're new to cutting salmon, we are going to want to make a handle. So what we're going to be trying to do right now is we're going to be trying to remove the fish from the flesh. Okay? So we are going to take back here and make a handle. And I'll say this, the knife itself was so sharp that we almost cut through our handle.
What?
So I said we're making a handle, and then I said the knife is so sharp I almost cut through my handle. I might have cut a little bit too much for my hand. Yep. Okay.
It's not a thick piece either.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and make another handle. Okay. So then we're going to slide the knife underneath. We're going to grab our handle. Haven't done this in a while. I didn't do too bad of a job. Don't blame the knife, blame the chef. I'll tell you this, the knife itself is pretty sharp. Don't blame the knife, blame the chef. And I know the owners of the show are watching and they're like, what are you doing?
The owners of the knife.
I mean, the owners of the knife, I'm sorry.
Like,
What are you doing, Greg? I am going to enjoy some barbecue salmon, though. Our dog is like, what's up, Dad? It's so funny. I'm used to being able to do this on the first try. So, but what I really like is right now I'm really having good time slicing the flesh. It's letting me get wafer thin. Obviously, I'm not a sushi chef, by the way. Okay, my wife will open the trash for me so I can discard this. And let's do this the way a sushi chef would. Okay, so you have the flatter side that's a little bit more tapered. What they would want to do is you want the knife to do one continuous drag. You do not want to do a sawing motion. So you really do want to just do a light, nice slice. And you see with that one slice we have 2 fish. Okay. And then when they're going to make their sushi, they would go ahead and get rid of the first piece. They would use that for, say, a roll of some kind. And then you really want to make sure that when you're slicing, it's just one continuous pull. And again, I might, for this particular fish, need a bigger piece. So I'm able to get the piece that I would need. Waste nothing. Make sure you make those rolls. So you're able to...
Except not with this fish.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sakai salmon is being used
wild.
for a...
Yeah, it's also wild, so you can't make sushi out of it.
And again, this is not like from my fresh fish market, by the way. So I'm not sure of its age. I do apologize. But again, I just wanted to show you that they are going to lay the knife in and in a dragging motion. But you can see that the edge is cut extremely clean. That's the point of the knife. Okay. It's very silent, cuts meat really well, and that's its purpose. But if for some reason, touching this, if you wanted to have fun with your knife and you wanted to, you know, use it in a way that I used earlier,
It's not that you couldn't.
it's not that you couldn't.
Don't put it on like that.
As far as like the rocking motion, I'm not sure that you could because there's no finger clearance. But as far as like a chopping motion, it's your knife, have fun with it. Okay, well, for Okingjoy, I will say that I'm Greg Blythe. That was definitely not a dull moment. I appreciate you checking in with us. If you want to check out their website, there'll be a link in the description. I know that this combo set normally is $3.99. I do not believe that there's a sale of any kind unless it's something that they're promoting. I'm not promoting a sale of anything. That is the price. Really good Japanese steel, the Asian version of German steel commonly used. 4 different knives. You've seen how to use them. Go and check them out. Looks pretty good to me. Good night. God bless.